Hi everyone, this is my take two on the tour about the uh, Art Nouveau Museum in St. Petersburg. The thing is, when I did the tour, I forgot to press the recording and the tour was not recorded. So, this is my way to make up to you because I know some of you haven't been able to join me live, and that's okay. Life gets in the way, and I should have been more careful. So, there you go. So, and surprise, surprise, we are in the Peter and Paul Fortress, believe it or not. It's a very surprising place for an Art Nouveau tour because Peter and Paul Fortress has nothing to do at all with Art Nouveau. This is 18th century, early 18th century, cradle of St. Petersburg, whereas Art Nouveau is a much more later invention of humanity, meaning turn of the 20th century. But nevertheless, Peter and Paul Fortress is also home to 20 other museums that are not really related. They cover different topics, different subjects. Some of them are private museums, such as a wax figures museum, for example, or well, the Museum of Miniatures. Well, another one out of those 20 something is the Art Nouveau Museum. So let's explore what we've got. The exhibition is really tiny. The rooms are quite tiny, and nevertheless, I believe it's a very good exhibition that represents, well, Art Nouveau as a period in St. Petersburg, as a very short-lived style, unfortunately, very short-lived, and it finished quite abruptly with the First World War and then the Revolution, and the amazing thing about Art Nouveau is that this style is very fluid, very changeable, and it is different to different culture, different country. That's exactly why almost in every culture, every country, there is a name for Art Nouveau, such as, well, in Russia we call it modern, Art Nouveau in France, Secession in Austria, Jugendstil in Germany, Liberty style in Italy, and more, well, Tiffany further on in the States. Well, there is a reason for it. Let's first of all talk a little bit about the style in general. So it's not very specific to Russia. Art Nouveau was born at the times when well, the world was changing at a frantic pace with the scientific progress, the Industrial Revolution. People felt that the world is running like crazy at a breakneck speed, and people needed a break. People were not ready for the planes, for the trains, for factories and whatnot. People were not ready for it. Electricity, photography, oh goodness, and new discoveries taking place on a daily basis. People were not ready for it, and that's quite natural. That well, eventually they would try to slow down and return to, I would say, the basics, to nature. That's exactly when this style was born. It came exactly when it was needed, and hence we have abundance of floral motifs, flowery designs, smooth lines, curved lines, not a single sharp angle or line. Everything smooth, everything curvy, slow, and it's supposed to remind us of nature. And not only that, it's also unique. It is. It was one of the ideas of Art Nouveau would be to use local materials, to use natural materials on the one hand to be closer to nature, but Art Nouveau did not ignore the advancement of the 20th, well, turn of the 20th century. So it was the use of electricity, use of the new materials that were invented, the use of different approaches, the use of all sorts of technical advancement that were available at that time. This is when Art Nouveau was born. But it was more than just that. Well, It was, as I said, culture specific. And I guess it was only natural that Art Nouveau kind of came after a long period of romanticism, right? In literature, in actually even in architecture. Uh, Second half of the 19th century, this is the period when neo-Gothic style was born, and well, Europe went crazy about the Knight's Tales, about the medieval culture, and the same happened in Russia, by the way. But in Russia, it wasn't about the medieval, tales of knight tournaments. It was about the old Russian folk tales, and well, in general, the folklore. And this is when Neo-Russian style was born, and when Art Nouveau came, Neo-Russian style kind of um, made this fusion with Art Nouveau, and that's a very interesting combination. And that's very much Russia specific thing. What we have in this museum is the collection of furniture, is the collection of art objects of all sorts, also dishes, porcelain, and all sorts of accessories and items and artifacts that were used in everyday life. Art Nouveau was everywhere. Art Nouveau was more of a concept, as more of a lifestyle rather than just, let's say, style of furniture or architectural style. And it showed in everything, absolutely everything. It was the period when the applied art would be created and designed in this style all over the Western world, I would say, in Russia, in Europe. And we can see, luckily, well, when Misha filmed it for us, Misha, my husband, he visited St. Petersburg a few months ago, and I asked him to visit this museum. I asked him also to film explications as well, all these explanations, because I know there's not so much information out there, and I wanted to be able to show you something, to tell you more stories. So let's start with furniture. There is, well, furniture is, I would say, it's one of the, maybe some of the most solid items that you could find in Art Nouveau style. Well, architecture is one thing, obviously, but buildings tend to be rebuilt or destroyed. Well, it depends, obviously, but furniture, it was a lot easier to preserve. And the museum boasts quite a diverse collection of furniture sets, and um, we can see that this furniture is not really, I would say, super ornate or very sophisticated. So this furniture, most of the furniture sets we will see in this exhibition were made by Robert Friedrich Meltzer, who was the, well, one of the representatives of the Meltzer family, known as architects, furniture designers, and even engineers. So Friedrich Meltzer, Meltzer and Co., the company, the furniture company and architectural bureau, they were, well, one of their all, well, I would say all-time clients would be the royal family. That is Nicholas II and his wife. These are the photos of the Maple Room in Alexander Palace, the residence of Nicholas II and his family. So this entire room was designed by Meltzer. Obviously, this was all very exquisite, made to measure, most expensive materials. All this is the study of Nicholas II in Alexander Palace. That's the restored version of the Maple Room. And yeah, you can see this sofa, which took many months, to make it. But this is a unique thing. Yeah, this is a one-time thing, very special order. Yes, expensive, but This is not something that you will be making money with. Just like Carl Fabergé. Carl Fabergé wouldn't have become Carl Fabergé had he only been making one or two, let's say, Easter eggs per year. This would never be enough to stay afloat and to run business and grow business. So Carl Fabergé and Robert Friedrich Meltzer did one and the same thing. They simplified their produce, not made it of a worse quality, but they just adapted it and adjusted it for a wider market. They set up the mass production of their furniture and they made it affordable to, I would say, wider range of audience. Middle class. Second half of the 19th century is the period when the middle class was also born in Russia. There are lots of merchants, traders. Well, people had some money. They couldn't afford buying exclusive furniture, well, like the Tsars could, but they could buy a decent furniture set. Also, they could afford having a camera, which means that they probably had tons of photographs, so they would be buying also photo frames. We know Meltzer's, Fabergé, and a lot of others would be producing photo frames. It was a big fad back in the days. Look at the bird cage. So Art Nouveau idea would be to be everywhere, making each aspect of a human life beautiful. And this is a bird cage. Even every aspect of a bird life was meant to be beautiful. So we don't know exactly where the bird cage was made, but well, it ended up in the collection of this museum. It's a rare thing to actually have some full, complete sets of furniture, because normally back in the days, especially taking into account the revolution and then the Second World War, it was very common practice just to preserve one or two items from the set, and the rest, well, kind of could have been possible to restore if need be. Also, we lost a lot of furniture in the Second World War times when Leningrad, Soviet name for St. Petersburg is Leningrad, as many of you know. Just to remind you, Leningrad was under the siege for 872 days, and people were cut off from all the supplies, including the heating. So people just needed to keep themselves warm, and they would destroy the furniture for that, obviously, wooden furniture. Also, you see a lot of lamps. Electricity is one of the biggest breakthroughs in the second half of the 19th century. And the closer we got to the 20th century, the more homes had electricity, the more facilities people had, and lamps, and which especially used colored glass and style. In general, by the way, let's have a look at these stained glass installations. Stained glass is one of the features of Art Nouveau throughout, let's say, regardless of the culture, the country, and use of color glass in the lamps created endless opportunities for design decoration. And also, for the first time in history, we got to choose. I'm having a cat situation here. What do you want, dear? Let me know. What do you want? Come here. Come here. That's okay. You can come. Okay, well, for the first time in history, we could choose what exactly we want to illuminate, where we can, we could direct. Okay, Lisa, that's just incredible. Come here. Oh, crazy Kisa. I am sorry. Let me get back. Yeah, and so for the first time in history, we could choose how to light things, where to place the lights, and we could choose exactly the color of our light thanks to the colored glass. Obviously, light bulbs were of the same color, but the lights, the stained glass could have been of any color, and that was just the whole new universe. And well, we could get creative, very creative. So that was very special indeed. Well, furniture we kind of spoken about. As I said, every aspect of the life of a human being. So apart from furniture, all sorts of vases, all sorts of interior decorations. Um, Also, there's one more thing. You see this explication of the small figurine, porcelain. This one was made in Russia in the Imperial Porcelain Factory. Actually, these are collectibles. Fabergé was one of the first ones to cut that kind of not only followed the demand and supplied the demand, but also created the demand. He managed to drum up the interest for collectibles. And Karl Fabergé, the jeweler, he started the release of just different collectibles, objet de fantaisie that was called, and people got really crazy about it. It was a big hype, and other manufacturers followed the same path. And for example, they would, these tiny porcelain detail, kind of not really tiny, they're kind of a small porcelain figurines. They would be very common. A lot of vases. We will talk about some of the vases because, obviously, there was penetration of different brands into Russian market, and obviously Russian market got influenced by European markets. Russia was always a little bit behind Europe, so it would be like always catching up, and it's only natural that the European influences would be seen, would be noticeable. Well, speaking of other elements, it's all about nature, right? About flowers, but not only that, because here, for example, in these chairs, I can see wings of a butterfly. And it's quite common to find the details similar to, some insects, some animals, some flowers. This is very common because, come on, this is nature. So yeah, for sure. Vases. Well, this vase was made in the Imperial Porcelain Factory, and these type of vases, the creation of these vases were inspired by the Danish porcelain. Danish porcelain vases were one of the most favorite collectibles. That's, by the way, the figurine over there. Collectibles in the possession of Maria Feodorovna Romanova, mother to Nicholas II, and we will see some of them. Look, milk jug, cream jug, butter containers, teapot and sugar bowls, teapots and sugar bowls. It could be anything. Every item, anything could be beautiful, and this, I would say, penetration of Art Nouveau didn't only apply to this, but even let's talk about the design, the architecture. Before that, facade and the courtyard and also the interiors of the house could be three very different things. I mean, they could look very differently. Normally in St. Petersburg, let's say facades, the main facade is important. You judge the book by its cover, so obviously, you will splash out, especially if it's a tenant house and you want to have good tenants and rich tenants and have a good paycheck. That's one thing for sure. But normally, when it got to backyards, when it got to interiors, that depended. And backyards never really had to be as beautiful. Art Nouveau required that every part of the house had to be beautiful and different. And also it had to coincide, kind of correlate with the interior design as well. That was something very new. By the way, this is the vase I'm talking about. That's the Danish vase. That's the Copenhagen. It was made, and once it became known in Russia that Maria Feodorovna collected those vases, aristocracy would would do the same. And this is when the Imperial Porcelain Factory in St. Petersburg started producing something similar, inspired by the Danish vases. That's the thing. Very typical, I would say. What is that? Let's have a look at this plate. It is shaped, it is designed as a, as a leaf, right? Like a big leaf of a certain plant. And to me, it looks like a, is it a frog? So yeah, again, that just only proves the point. Back to nature. So a frog on a leaf. Another highlight of the collection are vases by Émile Gallé, who was one of the best, most popular, and highly acclaimed artists who especially worked with the multi-layered glass. Gallier created absolutely whimsical, beautiful, unusual, unique, fantastic items, and inspired others for the same. So the museum is proud that they have actually Emile Gallé vase in the collection, but they also have gazillions of them made in Russia that were inspired by Gallé. And indeed, during times of Gallé himself, there would be a lot of, well, faked or just copies, because not everyone could afford the vase from the Gallé, but the Gallé-like style, why not? So Art Nouveau is the period that was, well, Art Nouveau items were always very well marketed. And this was the time, which I don't know, just when there was also revolution in marketing in the trade. And this is when catalog trade was introduced. Obviously, there was catalog trade before that, but this was when Meltzer, for example, issued catalog, and anyone could order a furniture set. Yeah, okay, it wouldn't be as ornate, sophisticated, and expensive as the furniture set created for the Romanovs, but it would be something very similar, right? Simpler, but similar. I like this porcelain set decorated with the iris flowers. Irises, by the way, would be used in every Art Nouveau style. It's one of the symbols. First of all, well, the white iris and the and the lilies are, well, the symbols of chastity, of purity, and we are kind of trying to get back to nature. So yeah, that kind of makes sense. You reconnect with nature and you want to purify yourself, from what's going on in the world. You want to detach yourself from what's going on with the world. So irises are, yeah, big flower, have big place in Art Nouveau history for sure. And well, this chair, by the way, I like it very much. No symmetry. So the absence of symmetry, the fluidity of forms, that's another feature of Art Nouveau. That is true. Here we have all sorts of mantle clocks in Art Nouveau style, with the use of different materials, use of metal. It was no longer about the use of expensive materials, but the use of new materials. Natural materials, yes, but also the new materials. For example, here, this is the imitation of the woodwork. It's not wooden clock, it's the imitation of wood. For the imitation of ivory, there was introduced the material somewhat similar to celluloid. So that's how they could imitate ivory. That's a beautiful mural design made by an artist, Nikolai Nabokov. He's not related to the Nabokov, but that's not relevant. What is relevant is that um, um, fine art, fashion, dishes and kitchenware, interior architecture, every aspect of life was under the influence of Art Nouveau. That's, I believe, is pretty awesome. So some more furniture sent by Meltzer, a lot of them. So thanks to the introduction of this catalog trade, Meltzer could be found in almost any home. Well, I mean, obviously I'm talking about middle class, upper middle class, and aristocrats. With regards to furniture, and where the exhibits came from. That's a good question. We don't know the provenance of all the items. Some of the it's quite clear that some of these items were after the revolution, they were nationalized. They became property of the state, well, rather than the property of certain families. Oh, I'm sorry. I really like these sets. They remind me of I don't know. It looks like a plant, some plants, right? Maybe some wheat sheaf. Well, this vase, I don't know. It looks like a flower, like a white rose. And some sets are not complete because we don't know what happened to. We don't know the provenance of some of these items, so they must have been destroyed during the revolution, or well, a lot of and some of the furniture items, they would be taken to storages, to museums, and then ended up in the collection of this museum as well. Yeah, Wedgwood and Wedgwood like ceramics was always in high demand. That is true. Also, well, this type of decorations, they didn't cost much money, especially if it's not like Wedgwood, but it was Wedgwood like, and more people could afford it. So it was a lot easier to afford this type of vase in the turn of the 20th century than in the mid 19th century. And those were good presents, and again, collectibles. Some more of the dishes. So it's not like all of the items were made in Russia. You can find items made in Europe, and it would be around the same time. It would be about the turn of the 20th century. I like this one. I'm not sure what this bowl, well, what this bowl was made for. The trays, gorgeous trays, spoons, cutlery, anything, butter containers, cream jars, milk jars, incredible. So that's business card tray, desktop items, the writing utensils. Well, let's just have a look at them. And there was also use of so we said the natural materials. This is the imitation of wood, by the way, or let's say it would be the new materials, right, such as the celluloid used instead of natural but very expensive and well, problematic item material as ivory, right? So yeah, but also the use of new materials. The items will be made from the materials that wouldn't be used before. This Meltzer, for example, started making furniture from palisander wood. That was expensive, so that wasn't really, you know, affordable to even middle class, but there is a palisander room in Alexander Palace. Meltzer experimented a lot. Meltzer used metal. Meltzer used different types of fabrics and synthetic fabrics as well. And he succeeded, just to put it mildly. There were some kind of minor scandals, but they took place before Nicholas II got married. There was a situation then his father, Alexander III, was invoiced double for one and the same work, and he didn't like it and ordered not to give any commissions to Meltzer ever again. But Meltzer did not close. Meltzer did not go bankrupt because of that, because by that time Meltzer knew very well that this type of commissions would obviously give you the name and the reputation, but they will not earn you money. It would be, you know, day-to-day items created for middle class that would be uh, making the day. Well, this is where we wrap this up. I like this lantern very much. You could find lanterns of different kinds and shapes, and you must have seen already some of them. Well, you must have seen some of them as the tour went. So this is where fantasy got absolutely unleashed, and you could you could create whatever you wanted, almost, with regards to like how you want the lights to be, what kind of lamps you want. Do you want the to be red, green, yellow, or you could have multicolors that just looked absolutely mesmerizing to the people. Thank you so much, everyone, for your patience. Thank you so much for joining this tour. I tried to chase and just stick uh, to the exhibitions and the exhibits there. I hope you have enjoyed it, and I can't wait to see you on my other tours. Bye bye.